some Asian cities, it's considered acceptable for a commuter to fall asleep on
HSBC is a British universal bank and financial services group. The company was first established on March 3, 1865 in British Hong Kong as the Hongkong and Shanghai Bank, and was incorporated on August 14, 1866 as the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, and was founded on March 25, 1991 in London as HSBC Holdings Place as parent holding company to the entity in Hong Kong now as a subsidiary, and was founded by Sir Thomas Sutherland, and to this very day the company is still alive and healthy. So, how did it become so popular? Let's find out. Foundation. After the British established Hong Kong as a crown colony in the aftermath of the First Opium War, merchants from other parts of the British Empire, now in Hong Kong, felt the need for a bank to finance the growing trade through Hong Kong and sometimes also through Shanghai between China and India, the rest of the British Empire and Europe, of goods, produces and merchandises of all kinds, but especially opium, cultivated in or transited, re-exported through Raj. The founder, Thomas Sutherland of the Peninsular and Oriental Steam Navigation Company, wanted a bank operating on sound Scottish banking principles. Still, the original location of the bank was considered crucial, and the founders chose Wardley House in Hong Kong since the construction was based on some of the best feng shui in colonial Hong Kong. After raising a capital stock of 5 million Hong Kong dollars, the bank commenced operations on March 3, 1865. It opened a branch in Shanghai in April of that year and started issuing locally denominated banknotes in both the Crown Colony and Shanghai soon afterwards. The bank was incorporated in Hong Kong as the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation by the Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank Ordinance Numbers 2 and 5 of 1866, and a branch in Japan was also established in Yokohama in 1866. Shares of the bank were 13 securities initially traded on the Shanghai Stock Exchange, and were traded on that exchange until the Japanese closed the exchange in 1941. Business development. Sir Thomas Jackson became chief manager in 1876. During his 26-year tenure, the bank became a leader in Asia. A period of expansion followed, with the new buildings constructed in Bangkok in 1921, Manila in 1922, and Shanghai in 1923, and a new head office building in Hong Kong in 1935. Banknote issuance displaced other forms of the era and of the region, such as silver tails, due to political and economic instability. HSBC gained significant influence as a result. International expansion. Michael Turner became chief manager in 1953 and set about diversifying the business. His tenure came to an end in 1962, having established the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation of California, 1955, and having acquired the British Bank of the Middle East and the Mercantile Bank, based in India, in August 1959. Turner was succeeded in 1962 by Jake Saunders. In 1964, the chief managership was superseded as the top executive role in the bank by an executive chairmanship. During the confrontancy period in the 1960s, a group of Indonesian forces bombed the McDonald House building in Singapore, at the time used by HSBC, just a few months after Singapore was granted its independence from Malaysia. 3 people were killed, 33 injured, and the two Indonesian military officers responsible for the bombing were tried and executed. The present building in Hong Kong was designed by Sir Norman Foster and was held as one of the most expensive and technologically advanced buildings in the world in 1986, costing 5.3 billion Hong Kong dollars. Curation of the HSBC Group. On October 6, 1989, it was registered as a regulated bank with the Banking Commissioner of the Government of Hong Kong. HSBC Holdings Place, originally incorporated in England and Wales, was a non-trading dormant shelf company which completed its transformation on March 25, 1991 into the parent holding company to the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation Limited, now as the subsidiary, in preparation for its purchase of the UK-based Midland Bank and the impending transfer of sovereignty of Hong Kong to China. HSBC Holdings' acquisition of Midland Bank was completed in 1922 and gave HSBC a substantial market presence in the United Kingdom. As part of the takeover conditions for the acquisition, HSBC Holdings Place was required to relocate its world headquarters from Hong Kong to London in 1993. Major acquisitions in South America started with the purchase of the Banco Bermudas of Brazil for $1 billion in March 1997 and the acquisition of Roberts S.A. the Investidores of Argentina for $600 million in May 1997. In May 1999, HSBC expanded its presence in the United States with the purchase of Republic National Bank of New York for $10.3 billion, 2000 to 2010. Expansion into continental Europe took place in April 2000 with the acquisition of Crédit Commercial de France, a large French bank, for 6.6 billion euros. In July 2001, HSBC bought Derma Bank, an insolvent Turkish bank. In July 2002, Arthur Andersen announced that HSBC USA Incorporated, through a new subsidiary, Wealth and Tax Advisory Services USA Incorporated, WTAS, would purchase a portion of Andersen's tax practice. The new HSBC Private Client Services Group would serve the wealth and tax advisory needs of high net worth individuals. Then in August 2002, HSBC acquired Grupo Financiero Vital S.A.D.C.V., Mexico's third largest retail bank, for $1.1 billion. In November 2002, HSBC expanded further into the United States. Under the chairmanship of John Bond, it spent 9 billion euros, which is $15.5 billion US dollars, to acquire Household Finance Corporation, HFC, a U.S. credit card issuer and subprime lender. In a 2003 cover story, the banker noted when banking historians look back, they may conclude that it was the deal of the first decade of the 21st century. Under the new name of HSBC Finance, the division was the second largest subprime lender in the United States. The new headquarters of HSBC Holdings at 8 Canada Square, London, officially opened in April 2003. In July 2003, HSBC announced that it had agreed to acquire 82.19% of the Korean fund administrator, Asset Management Technology AM Tech, for $12.47 million in cash. It was the largest fund administrator in South Korea, with $24 billion of assets under administration. In September 2003, HSBC bought Polski Credit Bank S.A. of Poland for $7.8 million. In June 2004, HSBC expanded into China, buying 19.9% of the Bank of Communications of Shanghai. In the United Kingdom, HSBC acquired Marks & Spencer Retail Financial Services Holdings Limited for €763 million in December 2004. Acquisitions in 2005 included Mertress Incorporated, a U.S. credit card issuer, for $1.6 billion in August, and 70.1% of Dar es Salaam Investment Bank of Iraq in October. In April 2006, HSBC bought the 90 branches in Argentina of Banca Nacional del Laboral for $155 million. In December 2007, HSBC acquired the Chinese bank in Taiwan. In May 2008, HSBC acquired IL&FS Investment, an Indian retail broking firm. In 2005, Bloomberg Markets magazine accused HSBC of money laundering for drug dealers and state sponsors of terrorism. Then CEO Stephen Green said that this was a singular and wholly irresponsible attack on the bank's international compliance procedures, but subsequent investigation indicated that it was accurate and proved that the bank was involved in money laundering for the Sinaloa cartel and throughout Mexico. In July 2006, HSBC announced that it would acquire Westpac's sub-custody operations in Australia and New Zealand for $112.5 million, making HSBC the leading sub-custody and clearing player in Australia and New Zealand. In 2007, HSBC wrote down its holdings of subprime-related mortgage securities by $10.5 billion, becoming the first major bank to report its losses due to the unfolding subprime mortgage crisis. According to Bloomberg, one of the world's strongest banks by some measures. When HM Treasury required all UK banks to increase their capital in October 2007, the group transferred 750 million euros to London within hours and announced that it had just lent 4 billion euros to other UK banks. In March 2009, HSBC announced that it would shut down the branch network of its HSBC finance arm in the United States, leading to nearly 6,000 job losses and leaving only the credit card business to continue operating. Chairman Stephen Green stated, HSBC has a reputation for telling it as it is. With the benefit of hindsight, this is an acquisition which we wish we had not undertaken. According to the analyst Colin Morton, the takeover was an absolute disaster. In March 2009, it announced that it had made $9.3 billion of profit in 2008 and announced a 12.5 billion euros, which is 17.7 billion US dollars, and 138 billion Hong Kong dollars rights issue to enable it to buy other banks that were struggling to survive. However, uncertainty over the rights issue's implications for institutional investors caused volatility in the Hong Kong stock market. On March 9, 2009, HSBC's share price fell 24.14%, with 12 million shares sold in the last few seconds of trading. 2010 to 2013. On April 25, 2011, HSBC decided to shut down its retail banking business in Russia and reduce its private banking presence to a representative office. On May 11, 2013, the new chief executive, Stuart Gulliver, announced that HSBC would refocus its business strategy and that a large-scale retrenchment of operations, particularly in respect of the retail sector, was planned. HSBC would no longer seek to be the world's local bank, as costs associated with this were spiraling at 3.5 billion US dollars needed to be saved by 2013, with the aim of bringing overheads down from 55% of revenues to 48%. In 2010, then Chairman Stephen Green planned to depart HSBC to accept a government appointment in the Trade Ministry. Group Chief Executive Michael Gorgon was expected to become the next chairman. However, while many current and former senior employees supported the tradition of promoting the chief executive to chairman, many shareholders instead pushed for an external candidate. HSBC's board of directors had reportedly been split over the succession planning, and investors were alarmed that the row would damage the company. On September 23, 2010, Joe Higgin was announced he would step down as chief executive of HSBC. He was succeeded as chief executive by Stuart Gulliver, while Green succeeded as chairman by Douglas Flint. Flint was serving as HSBC's finance director, chief financial officer. August 2011. Further to CEO Stuart Gulliver's plan to cut $3.5 billion. August 2011. Further to CEO Stuart Gulliver's plans to cut $3.5 billion in costs over the next 2 years, HSBC announced that it would cut 25,000 jobs and exit from 20 countries by 2013, in addition to 5,000 job cuts announced earlier in the year. The consumer banking division of HSBC will focus on the UK, Hong Kong high-growth markets such as Mexico, Singapore, Turkey, and Brazil, and smaller countries where it has a leading market share. According to Reuters, Chief Executive Stuart Gulliver told the media there will be further job cuts. There will be something like 25,000 roles eliminated between now and the end of 2013. In August 2011, to align our U.S. business with our global network and meet the local and international needs of domestic and overseas clients, HSBC agreed to sell 195 branches in New York and Connecticut to First Niagara Financial Group Incorporated, and divestors to Key Corp, Community Bank NA, and Five Star Bank for around $1 billion, and announced the closure of 13 branches in Connecticut and New Jersey. The rest of HSBC's U.S. network will only be about half from a total 470 branches before divestments. On August 9, 2011, Capital One Financial Corporation agreed to acquire HSBC's U.S. credit card business for $2.6 billion, netting HSBC Holdings an estimated after-tax profit for $2.4 billion. In September, it was announced that HSBC sought to sell its general insurance business for around $1 billion. In 2012, HSBC was the subject of hearings of the U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee for investigations for severe deficiencies in its anti-money laundering practices. On July 16th, the committee presented its findings. Among other things, it concluded that HSBC had been transferring $7 billion in banknotes from its Mexican to U.S. subsidiary, much of it related to drug dealing, was disregarding terrorist financing links, and was actively circumventing the U.S. safeguards to block transactions involving terrorists, drug lords, and rogue games, including hiding $19.4 billion in transactions with Iran. This investigation followed on from a probe by the U.S. Federal Reserve and Office of the Comptroller of the Currency found that there was significant potential for unreported money laundering or terrorist financing. On December 11, 2012, HSBC agreed to pay a record $1.92 billion. HSBC agreed to pay a record $1.92 billion fine in this money laundering case. Bank officials repeatedly ignored internal warnings that HSBC's monitoring systems were inadequate. The Justice Department said, in 2008, for example, the CEO of HSBC Mexico was told that Mexican law enforcement had a recording of a Mexican drug lord saying that HSBC Mexico was the place to launder money. The United States Department of Justice, however, decided not to pursue criminal penalties, a decision which the New York Times labeled a dark day for the rule of law. HSBC Chief Executive Stuart Gulliver said, "We accept responsibility for our past mistakes. We have said we are profoundly sorry for them, and we do so again." Since 2013. In July 2013, Alan Keir was appointed Chief Executive of HSBC Bank Place after Brian Robertson's resignation. Keir's duties include overseeing the firm's UK, European, Middle Eastern, and African divisions. In June 2014, an indirect, wholly owned subsidiary HSBC Life UK Limited agreed to sell its $4.2 billion UK pensions business to Swiss Re. In February 2015, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists released information about the business conduct of HSBC under the title Swiss Leaks, based on the 2007 hacked HSBC account records from the whistleblower Hervé Falanqui. The ICIJ alleges that the bank profited from doing business with corrupt politicians, dictators, tax evaders, dealers of blood diamonds, arms dealers, and other clients. U.S. Senate investigators in 2012 had sought the hacked HSBC account records from the Falanqui and French authorities, but never received the data. HSBC announced in August 2015 that it would be selling its Brazilian unit to Banco Bradesco for $5.2 billion the following years of disappointing performance. In 2015, HSBC was recognized as the most trusted foreign bank in India by the Brand Trust Report in 2015. In 2016, the bank was mentioned numerous times in the connection with the Panama Papers investigation. Many Syrians were angered with their accounts, were judged high risk and closed, despite the bank reportedly telling Mossack Fonseca it was comfortable with Rami Makalouf as a customer, even though U.S. Treasury sanctions against him were in effect at the time. On March 20th, 2017, the British newspaper The Guardian reported that hundreds of banks had helped launder KGB-related funds out of Russia, as uncovered by an investigation named Global Laundromat. HSBC was listed among the 17 banks in the UK that were facing questions over what they knew about the international scheme and why they did not turn away suspicious money transfers, as HSBC processed $545.3 million in laundromat cash, mostly routed through its Hong Kong branch. Other banks facing scrutiny under the investigation included the Royal Bank of Scotland, NatWest, Lloyds, Barclays, and Coates. In response, HSBC stated that it was against financial crime and that the case highlights the need for greater information sharing between the public and private sectors. On October 1st, 2017, Mark Tucker succeeded Douglas Flint as Group Chairman of HSBC, the first non-executive and outside chairman appointed by the group. Also in October 2017, HSBC announced that John Flint, Chief Executive of Retail Banking and Wealth Management, would succeed Stuart Gulliver as the Group Chief Executive on February 21st, 2018. It was further announced on August 5th, 2019 that Flint was leaving and his role would be filled on a temporary basis by Noel Quinn, head of HSBC's Global Commercial Bank. Noel Quinn was subsequently appointed to the role on a permanent basis in March 2020. In February 2020, HSBC announced that it would cut 35,000 jobs worldwide after it was announced corporate profits decreased by 33% in 2019. In October 2020, HSBC committed to achieve zero emission by 2050. For example, by this year, it would not only become carbon neutral by itself, but also will work only with carbon neutral clients. It also committed to providing $750 to $1,000 billion to help clients make the transition. It also pledged to achieve carbon neutrality in its own operations by 2030. In January 2021, HSBC announced that it would be closing 82 branches in Britain. In May 2021, HSBC announced the exit of U.S. retail banking business by selling 10 California branches to Cathay Bank and 80 branches to Citizens Financial Group and closing the remaining branches. The bank said it intends to focus on the banking and wealth management needs of globally connected, affluent, and high net worth clients. In May 2021, HSBC committed to the end of financing the coal industry with a commitment to publish a new coal policy and provide further detail on its climate strategy by the end of 2021. The organization's thermal coal phase-out policy was published in December 2021. In August 2021, HSBC announced the acquisition of AXA Singapore. HSBC Insurance Asia Pacific Holdings Limited, an indirect wholly owned subsidiary of HSBC, would acquire 100% of the issued shared capital of AXA Singapore for $575 million. In December 2021, HSBC Asset Management in India Private Limited, an indirect wholly owned subsidiary of HSBC, announced it would acquire L&T Investment Management. In December 2021, HSBC Asset Management India Private Limited, an indirect wholly owned subsidiary of HSBC, announced it would acquire L&T Investment Management for $425 million from L&T Finance Holdings. In June 2022, HSBC announced its intention to sell its business in Russia. This requires approval from the Russian government, and the deal is expected to close in the first half of 2024. The projected loss is $300 million. A possible buyer is the Russian Expo Bank. In February 2024, the president of Russia allowed HSBC and Expo Bank to carry out this transaction. In July 2022, HSBC became the first foreign lender to open a Chinese Communist Party CCP committee in its Chinese investment banking subsidiary. The subsidiary, HSBC Pawnee Securities, is a 90% HSBC-owned joint venture. In November 2022, HSBC announced the exit of Canadian markets. Royal Bank of Canada will acquire 100% of the common shares of HSBC Canada for an all-cash purchase price of $13.5 billion, which is a multiple of 9.4 times HSBC Canada's estimated 2024 earnings. Completion of the transaction is expected by late 2023, subject to regulatory approvals. HSBC has been under pressure to cut costs and divest non-Asian businesses. In February 2023, HSBC announced that its profit for the last quarter of 2022 has almost doubled when compared to the same time of the year before. However, its pre-tax profit actually fell because it absorbed the cost of selling its French retail banking operations. The bank also announced that they were closing 114 branches in the United Kingdom. The move came as more people were using online banking since the pandemic, reducing the need for physical branches. The move has been criticized by Unite. As interest rates increased globally in May 2023, HSBC Holdings reported a 212% increase in quarterly profit. In May 2023, HSBC defeated a proposal backed by its largest stakeholder, Chinese insurer Ping An, to consider spinning off its Asia business into a Hong Kong listed entity. In December 2023, HSBC Asset Management announced they would be acquiring the Singapore-based investment manager Silk Road Property Partners. The proposed acquisition includes Singapore-based Silk Road Property Partners (PTE) Limited, along with its subsidiaries in Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Tokyo, and the 5 general partner entities associated with its active funds. Terms of the agreement were not disclosed. The deal would expand HSBC's real estate fund management capabilities in the region by bringing on board business with an estimated $2 billion in assets under management, primarily in value-add strategies, as well as a senior team with experience executing deals in the region's major cities. In 2024, HSBC, as part of the Hong Kong Association of Banks, began developing a roadmap to phase out checks in the city and switch to electronic payments. According to Hong Kong Interbank Clearing, check transactions in Hong Kong fell to 488.6 billion Hong Kong dollars, which is 62.5 billion US dollars in December, down 13% year on year. In 2024, HSBC announced an international payments app, a competitor to Revolt and Wise Apps. It will also focus on retail customers and low-cost currency exchange. And there's the history of HSBC. How did it become so popular? Well, if you look at it this way, they acquired many banks over the years, ever since the 1800s, and that's been a very long time for them to be around, and a very long time for them to be acquiring banks as well. But anyways, with that being said, I think I'm going to end off this video. If you guys haven't enjoyed this video, please make sure to like the button, and also don't forget to subscribe to get a video of the day. And also don't forget to subscribe to my other 2 channels as well, Dance Plays and my walkthrough channel, Exotic Game Walkthroughs. And until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye!